A barefoot 7-year-old girl stood shivering on Ethan Carter's porch in the pouring rain, her small voice barely rising above the thunder. "I need a father by Friday, or they're going to take me away from my mom." Behind her trembling figure stood the wreckage of two broken families, a brutal custody war fueled by wealth and power, and one impossible choice that would force a grief-stricken widower to decide whether protecting his own shattered heart mattered more than saving the desperate child standing before him in the storm. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Let's begin. The rain started just after 8 o'clock on a Thursday night in October, the kind of cold, driving rain that turned dirt roads into rivers and made the streetlights along Maple Avenue look like they were drowning. Ethan Carter stood at his kitchen sink washing sawdust off his hands, staring through the window at the downpour while his 8-year-old son Noah sat at the table behind him, pushing lukewarm macaroni around his plate. "You gonna eat that? Or just move it in circles until bedtime?" Ethan asked without turning around. "Not hungry?" "You said that yesterday too." "Still true today." Ethan dried his hands on a dish towel that had seen better days and turned to look at his son. Noah had his mother's eyes, the same light brown that turned almost gold when the sun hit them just right. 4 years gone, and Ethan still saw Sarah in every angle of their boy's face. Some days it was a comfort. Most days it was just another kind of haunting. "You eat half and you can go watch TV," Ethan said. "Deal?" Noah sighed dramatically, but picked up his fork. "This deal sucks." Language. "You say worse when you hit your thumb with a hammer." "I'm an adult. I've earned the right to create a vocabulary. That's not fair." "Life rarely is, kid." The house they lived in was a small 2-story craftsman on the edge of town, built sometime in the 50s when people still believed in front porches and neighborhoods where everyone knew each other's business. Ethan had bought it with Sarah 7 months before Noah was born, back when the future felt wide open and full of possibilities that didn't include single fatherhood and 4 years of carefully maintained emotional shutdown. The living room still had the furniture they'd picked out together. The bedroom upstairs still had her clothes in the closet because Ethan couldn't bring himself to bag them up and drive them to Goodwill. The workshop out back, the one he'd converted from a garage, was the only space in his entire world that felt like it belonged to him alone, where he could lose himself in the smell of sawdust and wood stain and pretend that grief was something you could sand away with enough patience and the right grade of sandpaper. He'd been working on a custom dining table for the Hendersons when the rain started, trying to get the inlay just right on the oak top. Handmade furniture was a strange business for a 32-year-old man with no formal training beyond YouTube videos and trial and error, but it paid enough to keep the lights on and Noah fed, and it had the added benefit of requiring absolutely zero human interaction beyond the occasional client meeting. Ethan liked it that way. Quiet, controlled, predictable. The house next door had been empty for 3 months, ever since old Mrs. Patterson died and her kids put the place up for sale. It was bigger than Ethan's, a sprawling Victorian with good bones and a wraparound porch that needed paint. For weeks there'd been real estate signs and weekend showings. Then, suddenly, the signs came down and moving trucks appeared. He'd noticed them 2 days ago, caught glimpses of expensive furniture being carried inside, heard unfamiliar voices giving instructions to the movers. He hadn't bothered to introduce himself. Neighborly wasn't really in his vocabulary anymore. Noah finished half his macaroni, pushed the plate away, and disappeared into the living room where the sound of cartoons soon filled the house. Ethan scraped the leftovers into the trash, washed the plate, and was considering whether he had enough energy to go back out to the workshop when he heard the sound. At first he thought it was the wind. Then he realized someone was knocking on his front door. He glanced at the clock on the microwave. 8:45. Nobody knocked on doors at 8:45 on a Thursday night in a rainstorm unless something was wrong. Ethan crossed through the living room where Noah lay sprawled on the couch, walked to the front door, and pulled it open. A little girl stood on his porch, soaking wet. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, barefoot, wearing pajamas that clung to her small frame, dark hair plastered to her head. Her face was streaked with rain and tears, and something that might have been mud. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. For a long moment, Ethan just stared at her, his brain struggling to process what he was seeing. "Please," the girl whispered, I need help. Ethan's paralysis broke. Jesus, kid, get inside. He stepped back and she stumbled through the doorway, dripping water all over the hardwood floor. Noah sat up on the couch, eyes wide. Dad, who's that? I don't know yet. Ethan grabbed the throw blanket off the back of the armchair and wrapped it around the girl's shoulders. What's your name? Lily. Her voice was so small he barely heard it. Lily what? Lily Hale. Where do you live, Lily? She pointed toward the window. Next door. That explained it. The new neighbors. Ethan felt a flash of irritation that was immediately overwhelmed by concern because whatever was happening here, this kid was terrified and freezing and clearly in some kind of trouble. What happened? He asked, kneeling down to her level. Are you hurt? She shook her head but didn't speak. Where are your parents? Just my mom. She's at home. She doesn't know I left. Does she know you're missing? I don't think so. She was in her office. She works a lot. Noah had gotten up from the couch and was standing a few feet away, watching the scene with confused fascination. Is she okay? Go get some dry towels from the bathroom, Ethan told him. The good ones, not the ones we use for the dog. We don't have a dog. Then any towels are fine, just go. Noah disappeared upstairs. Ethan turned his attention back to Lily, who was still shaking despite the blanket. Lily, I need you to tell me what's going on. Why did you leave your house in the rain? Why aren't you wearing shoes? Her bottom lip trembled. I heard my mom crying. And that scared you? She never cries. Never. But tonight she was crying really hard and I heard her on the phone and she said, Lily's voice cracked. She said she might lose me. Ethan's chest tightened. Lose you how? I don't know, but I got scared and I didn't know what to do and I saw your lights on and I thought maybe... She looked up at him with eyes that were too old for her face, eyes that had seen things a 7-year-old shouldn't have to see. I thought maybe you could help. Noah returned with an armful of towels. Ethan took them and started drying Lily's hair as gently as he could, trying to think through the situation. A kid running away from home in a storm because she heard her mother crying about losing her. That sounded like a custody situation, divorce, legal trouble, none of which was his business, none of which he wanted any part of. Lily, I need to take you home to your mom, he said quietly. She's probably worried sick. But what if they take me away? Who's they? I don't know. Fresh tears started running down her face. I just know my mom was scared, and if my mom's scared, then something really bad must be happening because she's never scared of anything. Ethan stood up, ran a hand through his hair, and tried to figure out what the hell he was supposed to do here. He didn't know these people. He didn't want to know these people. His entire life was built around a carefully maintained distance from anyone who might require emotional investment, but he couldn't exactly send a terrified 7-year-old back out into the rain. All right, he said. Here's what we're going to do. Noah, you stay here. Lily and I are going to walk next door and talk to her mom, okay? Can I come? No. That's not fair. We've already established life isn't fair. Stay put. Ethan found an old jacket in the hall closet, one that had belonged to Sarah but he'd never gotten rid of, and helped Lily into it. It swallowed her completely, the sleeves hanging past her hands, but at least it was dry. Come on, he said, and they stepped out into the rain. The walk next door took less than a minute, but by the time they reached the front porch of the Victorian, Ethan was soaked through. He knocked on the door, sharp and loud, then waited. Footsteps inside. Fast, almost running. The door flew open and a woman stood there, backlit by the warm glow of the house behind her. She was maybe 30, dressed in expensive-looking clothes that had clearly been thrown on in a hurry, dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red-rimmed, but her expression was pure steel, the kind of controlled fury that came from years of practice keeping emotions locked down. Lily. Her voice cracked on the name. Oh my God, Lily. She dropped to her knees and pulled the girl into her arms, holding her so tight Ethan thought she might never let go. I'm sorry, Mommy, Lily sobbed into her shoulder. I'm sorry I scared you. Where were you? I've been looking everywhere. I was about to call the police. She came to my house, Ethan said. The woman's head snapped up, and she looked at him for the first time, really looked at him, and he saw the exact moment she shifted from terrified mother to something else entirely. Her eyes went sharp, assessing, taking in every detail of his face like she was cataloging evidence. "Who are you?" she asked. "Your neighbor?" "Ethan Carter. I live next door." "Victoria Hale." She stood up, keeping one hand on Lily's shoulder like she was afraid the girl might disappear if she let go. "Thank you for bringing her back. I'm sorry she bothered you." "She didn't bother me. She was scared." Victoria's jaw tightened. "Lily, go inside and change into dry clothes. Now." "But Mom." "Now, Lily." The girl hesitated, glanced at Ethan like she wanted to say something, then disappeared into the house. Victoria watched her go, then turned back to Ethan. "I apologize for whatever story she told you," she said, her voice clipped and professional. "My daughter has an active imagination, and sometimes she gets confused about things she overhears. She said you were crying about losing her." Victoria's composure cracked for just a second, a flicker of something raw and painful crossing her face before she locked it down again. "That's not your concern." "You're right. It's not. But she showed up on my doorstep in a storm because she was terrified, so maybe it's worth considering that whatever's going on, she knows something's wrong. I appreciate your input, Mr. Carter, but I don't need parenting advice from a stranger." The words were cold, dismissive, designed to end the conversation. Ethan should have taken the hint, should have turned around and walked back to his quiet, controlled, predictable life and forgotten the whole thing. Instead, he heard himself say, "She asked me if I could help." Help with what? She didn't really explain. Just said she needed a father by Friday or someone was going to take her away from you. Victoria's face went completely white. For a long moment, she just stood there, frozen, and Ethan watched her fight for control, watched her force herself to breathe, watched her rebuild whatever walls had just come crashing down. "That's not possible," she said finally. "She couldn't have known about—" She stopped herself. "Thank you for bringing her home. I can handle things from here." "Can you?" Her eyes flashed. "Excuse me?" "I'm not trying to pry into your business, but that kid is scared out of her mind, and I'm guessing there's a reason for it. So if you need help with something—" "I don't." Victoria's voice was ice. "I don't need help from you or anyone else. I've built a career on solving problems other people can't handle. I think I can manage my own family situation without assistance from the neighbor." She started to close the door. "Your daughter disagrees," Ethan said. Victoria stopped. Her hand was still on the door, her knuckles white from gripping it too hard. "What did you say?" "She came to me because she's scared and she thinks you can't fix it alone. Maybe she's wrong. Maybe you've got it all under control. But she doesn't believe that, and that should probably tell you something." For a long moment, Victoria just looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come inside," she said quietly. Ethan followed her into a house that was beautiful and sterile in equal measure. Expensive furniture, carefully chosen art on the walls, everything perfectly arranged and completely impersonal. It looked like a magazine spread, not a home. Victoria led him to a living room where a gas fireplace flickered behind glass and gestured to a leather couch. "Sit." He sat. She remained standing, arms crossed, and for a moment she just looked at him like she was trying to decide whether she'd made a terrible mistake letting him in. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room," she said finally. "Do you understand?" "All right. I'm serious. If I find out you've talked to anyone about this, lady, I don't even know you. Who would I tell?" That seemed to satisfy her. She took a breath, then another. And when she spoke, her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it that suggested the steadiness was taking everything she had. "I'm in the middle of a custody battle," she said. "My ex-husband is trying to take Lily from me." "On what grounds?" "Officially, that I can't provide a stable family environment, that my work schedule is too demanding, that Lily would be better off in a traditional two-parent household." Her mouth twisted. "Unofficially, because he's a vindictive bastard who can't stand that I left him, and he's using our daughter as a weapon." Ethan had seen enough custody cases play out among friends and acquaintances to know how ugly they could get. "What does he do?" "He's in commercial real estate, owns half the new developments going up around Columbus, has connections, money, lawyers who cost more per hour than most people make in a week." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I run a tech company. I'm the CEO. I make good money, but I'm a single mother with a demanding career, and apparently that's enough to make me unfit. That's bullshit. That's the law. Or at least, that's how the law can be twisted when you have enough money and influence. When's the hearing? Monday morning, 4 days from now. Victoria's composure finally cracked and she sank into the armchair across from him, suddenly looking exhausted. I've done everything my lawyers told me to do. I've documented every interaction with Lily, shown how involved I am in her life, proven that she's thriving, but it might not be enough. Why not? Because the judge is old-fashioned and my ex-husband's lawyers are very good at painting me as a career-obsessed woman who put ambition before family. They've made it sound like Lily's being raised by nannies and daycare workers while I jet around the country closing deals. Is that true? Her eyes flashed. No. I work from home 3 days a week. I'm at every school event, every parent-teacher conference. I read to her every night, but none of that matters when the other side can afford to make me look like something I'm not. Ethan leaned back against the couch, processing. What did Lily mean about needing a father by Friday? Victoria closed her eyes. She must have overheard part of a phone call with my lawyer. We were discussing the optics of the hearing, how the judge might view a single mother versus a remarried father. My ex got engaged 2 months ago to some 25-year-old who's apparently very excited about playing stepmother. And your lawyer suggested you needed a partner to level the playing field. Not in so many words, but yes. The implication was clear. She opened her eyes and looked at him directly. I told him that was impossible. I don't have time to date, and even if I did, I'm not going to manufacture a relationship just to win a court case. Except Lily heard that and thought you were going to lose because you don't have a husband. Apparently. They sat in silence for a moment. The rain hammered against the windows. Somewhere upstairs, Ethan could hear water running, Lily probably taking a shower to warm up. I should go, he said, standing. Let you figure this out. Wait. Victoria stood too. When Lily came to your door, what did she say exactly? That she needed a father by Friday or they were going to take her away from you. And you brought her back anyway. What else was I supposed to do? Most people would have called the police or just sent her home and forgotten about it. Yeah, well, I'm not most people. Victoria studied him for a long moment. You have a son. It wasn't a question. Ethan wondered how she knew, then realized Noah had been visible through the window when Lily knocked. Yeah, Noah. He's 8. Where's his mother? The question hit him like a fist to the chest. For a second he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stand there while 4 years of carefully maintained control threatened to collapse. She died, he said finally. Car accident, 4 years ago. Victoria's expression softened. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Ethan moved toward the door. Good luck with your hearing. Mr. Carter, her voice stopped him. The thing Lily said, about needing a father, what if she was right? He turned around slowly. What are you asking? I'm asking if you'd be willing to help me. Help you how? Victoria crossed her arms again, that professional mask sliding back into place. Pretend to be my partner, just for the hearing, just long enough to show the judge that Lily has a stable 2-parent household. Ethan stared at her. You want me to lie to a court? I want you to help me keep my daughter. By committing fraud. By presenting a version of the truth that works in my favor. People do it every day. Not me. Why not? What do you care about my custody case? You don't even know us. That's exactly the point. I don't know you. You don't know me. And you want us to walk into a courtroom and convince a judge that we're some kind of happy couple? I don't need happy. I need convincing. This is insane. This is desperate. Victoria took a step toward him. Look, I understand this is asking a lot. I understand we're strangers, but my daughter is terrified and I'm running out of options, and you seem like a decent person who maybe understands what it's like to want to protect your kid. Ethan felt the anger rising in his chest, that old familiar rage that he'd spent 4 years learning to suppress. Don't use my son to manipulate me into this. I'm not manipulating you. I'm asking for help. By suggesting I fake a relationship with a stranger to commit perjury in family court. I'm suggesting you spend a few hours pretending to care about someone so a little girl doesn't get ripped away from her mother by a man who sees her as property. Victoria's voice cracked on the last word. I'm suggesting maybe for once the universe could give a damn about what's right instead of what's technically legal. They stood there facing each other across the beautiful, sterile living room while the rain pounded down outside, and Ethan tried to figure out how his quiet Thursday night had turned into this. I need to think about it, he said. The hearing is Monday. I heard you the first time. So you don't have time to think. You either help me or you don't. Ethan reached for the door handle. I'll let you know tomorrow. Mr. Carter. Tomorrow, he said firmly, and walked out into the rain. By the time he got back to his house, he was soaked through for the second time that night. Noah was still on the couch, waiting, eyes wide with questions. Is that girl okay? He asked. She's fine. She's with her mom. What happened? Nothing. She just got scared and ran off. It's handled. Dad, you're dripping all over the floor. Ethan looked down at the puddle forming around his feet. Go brush your teeth and get ready for bed. But bed, Noah. Now. His son recognized the tone and didn't argue, just headed upstairs. Ethan stood in the entryway dripping water and trying to process what had just happened. A stranger had asked him to lie to a court. A stranger had asked him to pretend to be something he wasn't. A stranger had asked him to step into someone else's life and play a role he'd spent 4 years running away from. The smart thing to do was say no. The smart thing was to maintain his distance, keep his carefully controlled life exactly as it was, and let Victoria Hale figure out her own problems. Except he kept seeing Lily's face on his porch, kept hearing her small voice saying she needed a father by Friday, kept seeing the terror in her eyes when she talked about being taken away. Ethan walked upstairs, changed into dry clothes, and checked on Noah, who was already in bed pretending to read but clearly waiting to ambush him with questions. Is that girl's mom nice? Noah asked. I don't know her well enough to say. She looked sad when she came to the door. She was worried about her daughter. Are they going to be okay? Ethan sat down on the edge of Noah's bed. Why do you care? Noah shrugged. I don't know. The girl seemed scared, and you always said we should help people when they're scared. That's different. How? It just is. That's not an answer, Dad. Ethan looked at his son, at those eyes that were so much like Sarah's, and felt something shift in his chest. You think we should help them? I think Mom would have wanted us to help them. The words hit him like a truck. Noah kept talking. Remember that time Mom helped that lady in the grocery store who couldn't afford her food? And you said it wasn't our problem, and Mom said that's exactly why it was our problem. Ethan remembered. He remembered Sarah pulling out her credit card and paying for a stranger's groceries while he stood there feeling irritated about the delay. Remembered her turning to him in the parking lot and saying that the whole point of having more than you needed was using it to help people who had less. Remembered thinking she was too soft, too willing to get involved in other people's drama. Remembered loving her anyway. Mom was better at that stuff than I am, he said quietly. Maybe you could try being more like her. It's not that simple, kid. Why not? Because Ethan stopped, trying to find words that would make sense to an 8-year-old. Because I'm not good at letting people in anymore. Because it's easier to keep things quiet and controlled and not get involved in situations that could go bad. Dad, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Ethan almost laughed. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen. Fair enough. Ethan ruffled Noah's hair. Get some sleep. We'll talk about it tomorrow. You're going to help them, right? I don't know yet. You should. Noted. Ethan turned off the light and headed downstairs, his mind racing. He poured himself a glass of water and stood at the kitchen sink staring out at the rain, at the lights on in the house next door, where Victoria Hale was probably putting her daughter to bed and trying to figure out how to win an unwinnable fight. His phone was sitting on the counter. He picked it up, stared at it for a long moment, then opened a new message. He didn't have Victoria's number, but he had her address. Instead of texting, he walked to the front door, grabbed his jacket, and stepped back out into the rain for the third time that night. When he knocked on Victoria's door, she answered almost immediately, like she'd been waiting. I'll do it, Ethan said before he could change his mind. I'll pretend to be your partner for the hearing. Victoria's face went through about 6 different emotions in the span of 2 seconds. You will? Under one condition. We tell the truth about everything except the relationship. No lying about jobs, no inventing history, no making up details that could get caught later. Just the basic story that we've been together for a while and we're building a life together. That's acceptable. And after the hearing, we're done. No extended charade, no fake relationship for the neighbors. Just the court appearance, and then we go back to being strangers. Agreed. They stood there looking at each other, and Ethan wondered what the hell he'd just signed up for. When do we start? He asked. Tomorrow. We need to get our story straight, make it believable. Victoria paused. Thank you. I know this is asking a lot. Yeah, well, my kid thinks his dead mother would have wanted me to help you, so apparently I'm doing this whether I like it or not. Something flickered across Victoria's face. Your son sounds like a good kid. He's better than I deserve. I doubt that. Ethan shrugged. Guess we'll find out. See you tomorrow. He walked back to his house through the rain, feeling like he'd just stepped off a cliff without checking to see what was at the bottom. Inside, Noah was standing at the top of the stairs in his pajamas. You're helping them, aren't you? He said. Looks like it. Noah grinned. Mom would be proud. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. Maybe she would. He sent Noah back to bed, locked the doors, and stood in his quiet house listening to the rain and trying not to think about all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. 4 days until the hearing. 4 days to convince a courtroom that he and Victoria Hale were something more than strangers who'd met 12 hours ago in a storm. 4 days to help a terrified little girl keep the only parent she had left. Somewhere in the house next door, Lily was probably asleep, safe and warm and unaware that her barefoot run through the rain had just changed everything. Ethan climbed the stairs, checked on Noah one more time, and lay down in a bed that still felt too big even after 4 years alone. Outside, the rain finally started to slow. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he could almost hear Sarah's voice saying what she always said when he was scared of doing the right thing. Jump first, figure out the landing later. All right, he whispered to the empty room. Here goes nothing. Friday morning came too fast. Ethan woke at 6 to the sound of his alarm and lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to convince himself he hadn't made a massive mistake. The rain had stopped sometime during the night, leaving behind that clean-washed smell and a sky the color of old dishwater. He could hear Noah moving around in the next room, probably already awake and wondering what the hell his father had gotten them into. He dragged himself out of bed, showered, and went downstairs to find Noah sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal, watching him with those two observant eyes. So when do we meet the neighbors? Noah asked. Who said anything about we? Dad, you can't seriously think you're doing this without me. I'm part of the package. If you're pretending to be that lady's boyfriend, then I'm pretending to be her kid's friend or whatever. Stepbrother, Ethan said automatically, then caught himself. And no, you're not pretending anything. This is between me and Victoria. Her name's Victoria? That's fancy. She's a CEO. Everything about her is fancy. What's a CEO? Someone who runs a company, makes decisions, tells other people what to do. Noah considered this. Sounds like you'd hate that. Why would I hate it? Because you don't even like it when I tell you what to do. That's different. You're 8. Still counts. Ethan poured himself coffee and tried to figure out how to navigate this conversation. He'd spent most of the night lying awake, running through scenarios in his head, trying to anticipate all the ways this plan could fall apart. The list was long and getting longer. Look, he said, sitting down across from Noah. This whole thing is complicated, and I need you to understand something. What I'm doing for Victoria and her daughter, it's temporary. It's to help them get through a hard time. But it doesn't mean we're suddenly one big happy family or that anything's changing for us. I know that. Do you? Because I need you to really know it. I need you to understand that after Monday, things go back to normal. Noah pushed his cereal around the bowl. What if I don't want things to go back to normal? The question caught Ethan off guard. What's that supposed to mean? It means it's been just us for 4 years, and maybe that's not normal. Maybe normal is supposed to have more people in it. Noah, I'm not saying you have to marry her or anything. I'm just saying maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if we had neighbors we actually talked to. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain that talking to neighbors meant opening doors he'd spent years keeping locked, meant risking the kind of connection that could lead to loss, meant allowing himself to feel things he'd worked very hard not to feel. His phone buzzed on the counter, a text from an unknown number. "Can you come over at 9? We need to prep. Victoria." He showed it to Noah. "How'd she get your number?" "Probably the same way normal people do. Asked for it." "When did you give her your number?" "Last night before I left. Seemed like the practical thing to do if we're supposed to be coordinating this whole charade." Noah grinned. "Charade. That's a good word. Stop looking so pleased with yourself and finish your breakfast." At 9 o'clock exactly, Ethan walked across the yard to Victoria's house. The sun had broken through the clouds, turning everything bright and sharp, making him squint as he climbed the porch steps. He knocked once, and the door opened almost immediately. Victoria looked different in daylight, less composed, more real. She was wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than Ethan's entire wardrobe, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup. There were dark circles under her eyes that suggested she'd slept about as well as he had. "Thanks for coming," she said, stepping back to let him in. "Coffee?" "Already had some." "Have more." "You look like you need it." He followed her into a kitchen that was all white marble and stainless steel, everything spotless and organized and completely at odds with the chaos he suspected was happening inside her head. She poured him a cup from an expensive-looking machine and handed it over. "Where's Lily?" he asked. "Upstairs playing. I told her you were coming over to talk about helping us." "How much does she know?" "Enough. I explained that you're going to pretend to be my partner for the court hearing so the judge sees that she has a stable home." Victoria leaned against the counter. She asked if that meant you were her pretend dad. "What'd you tell her?" "That it's more complicated than that. That you're helping us, but it doesn't change anything real." "How'd she take it?" "Better than I expected. She's a smart kid. She understands when adults are trying to solve problems." Victoria paused. "She also asked if you were nice." "What'd you say?" "I said, I didn't know you well enough to judge, but you brought her home in the rain, so probably yes." Ethan sipped his coffee. It was better than anything he'd ever made at home. "So what's the plan? How do we make this believable?" Victoria pulled out a tablet and brought up what looked like a detailed outline. Of course she had an outline. She probably had spreadsheets and contingency plans and backup strategies for her backup strategies. "We need to establish a timeline," she said. "How we met, how long we've been together, why we haven't made it public yet. The story needs to be consistent and simple enough that we don't trip over details under questioning." "You think they're going to question us separately?" "My ex-husband's lawyers are thorough. I wouldn't put anything past them." Ethan set down his coffee cup. "All right. So how'd we meet?" Victoria had clearly already thought about this. 6 months ago. You were working on a custom bookshelf for one of my clients. She recommended you. I hired you to build some furniture for my home office." "That's plausible." "We started talking during the consultation meetings. Found out we were both single parents. Started having coffee, then dinner. Kept it quiet because we wanted to make sure it was serious before introducing the kids." "And when did we introduce the kids?" 2 months ago. Noah and Lily hit it off immediately." "Did they?" "They will after today." Ethan almost laughed. "You're very confident about that." "I'm confident about very little right now, but I'm good at projecting confidence." She looked down at her tablet. "We'll need to coordinate stories about specific dates, places we've been together, things we've done as a couple. The lawyers will look for inconsistencies." "This is insane. You said that already." "It bears repeating." Victoria set down the tablet and looked at him directly. "If you want to back out, now's the time. I won't hold it against you. You don't owe me anything." Ethan thought about Noah's face that morning, about Sarah's voice in his head telling him to jump first and figure out the landing later, about a terrified little girl standing on his porch in the rain. "I'm not backing out," he said, "but we're doing this my way." "What's your way?" "We keep it as close to the truth as possible. Real dates we could have actually gone on. Real places we've actually been. Real conversations we could have actually had. The only lie is that we're together. Everything else stays honest." Victoria considered this. That's smart. Easier to remember, harder to contradict. "I've had some practice with difficult situations." "I'm sorry. About your wife." "Don't be. I mean, be sorry she died, but don't be sorry for bringing it up. It happened. It's part of who I am now. How long has it been? 4 years. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. Ethan heard how flat his voice had gone, that automatic shutdown that happened every time he talked about Sarah. She died at the scene. Noah was at my mother's house. He didn't even get to say goodbye. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I can't imagine what that was like. I hope you never have to. My divorce was brutal, she said quietly, but at least it was a choice. At least I got to fight back. What happened to you? There's no fighting that. No, there's just surviving it. They stood there in her perfect kitchen with expensive coffee and matching grief. Two people who'd been broken in completely different ways trying to figure out how to fake being whole. We should probably practice, Victoria said finally. Acting like a couple. We need to be comfortable around each other or it'll show. Practice how? I don't know. Stand closer together. Make physical contact seem natural. Ethan felt his chest tighten. I don't do physical contact. You're going to have to. Couples touch each other, hold hands, put arms around each other. If we can't even stand next to each other without looking uncomfortable, the whole thing falls apart. She was right. He hated that she was right. Fine, he said. What do you want me to do? Victoria walked over and stood next to him, close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something floral and expensive. She reached for his hand. Her fingers were cold. This feels ridiculous, Ethan said. It feels like two people holding hands. Two people who barely know each other. That's what we're fixing. She squeezed his hand slightly. Try not to look like you're being tortured. I'm not good at this. Neither am I. But we're going to learn fast. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made them both turn. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, stopped short when she saw them standing there holding hands, and smiled. Are you really going to be my dad? She asked Ethan. I'm really going to pretend to be, Ethan said carefully. For the court. So you can stay with your mom. But pretend means not real. Yeah. So after the court, you'll go away? The question hit harder than it should have. That's the plan. Lily looked at her mother. I don't like that plan. Sweetheart, Mr. Carter has his own life, Victoria said gently. He's helping us because he's kind, but this is temporary. Everything's temporary, Lily said, and there was something ancient in her voice, something that suggested she'd learned that lesson the hard way. That's what Dad said when he left, that him being gone was temporary, but he's still gone. Victoria's face tightened. That's different. How? Because your father chose to leave. Mr. Carter is choosing to help. Those are very different things. Lily didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue. Instead, she walked over to Ethan and looked up at him with those serious eyes. Do you have kids? She asked. One. A son. Noah. He's 8. Does he like me? He doesn't know you yet. Will he get to know me? Ethan glanced at Victoria, who gave him a small nod. Yeah, he said. I think that can be arranged. Lily's face lit up. Can he come over now? Lily, Mr. Carter and I need to finish talking. Actually, Ethan interrupted, maybe that's not a bad idea. If we're supposed to be a blended family, the kids should probably spend some time together. Make it look natural. Victoria considered this. You're right. Go get Noah. Bring him over. 10 minutes later, Ethan returned with Noah, who looked simultaneously excited and terrified. Lily was waiting in the living room, sitting very straight on the couch, like she was preparing for an interview. Hi, Noah said. Hi, Lily said. I'm Noah. I'm Lily. I know. They stared at each other for a long moment, and Ethan wondered if this had been a terrible idea. Then Lily said, Do you want to see my room? Okay. Just like that, they disappeared upstairs. Victoria watched them go, then turned to Ethan. That was easier than I expected. Kids are weird. They either click immediately or they spend 6 months avoiding each other. Guess we got lucky. Luck would be nice for a change. They spent the next hour going over details, building their fake relationship story, memorizing dates and places and moments that never happened. Victoria was thorough to the point of obsession, making notes on her tablet, cross-referencing potential questions, running through mock interrogations. Ethan found himself grudgingly impressed. She approached the whole thing like a military operation, and maybe that's what it took to win against an ex-husband with unlimited resources and a vendetta. "What does your ex do for a living?" he asked during a break. "Commercial real estate development, high-end properties. He's built most of the new luxury apartments going up around Columbus." "So he's rich." "Very, and he knows how to use money as a weapon." "What's his angle here? Why does he want custody?" Victoria's jaw tightened. "Control. I left him 3 years ago after I found out he'd been having an affair. Filed for divorce, got primary custody of Lily because he was traveling constantly and barely saw her. He was fine with it at first, paid his child support, showed up for his weekends when it was convenient." "What changed?" "I did. I started my company, it took off, suddenly I was making real money and getting press coverage. He couldn't stand it, couldn't stand that I was successful without him, that I'd built something better than what we had together." She laughed bitterly. "So he decided to take the one thing that mattered more to me than the business." "That's sick." "That's Marcus." Upstairs, they could hear the kids laughing. The sound seemed to surprise Victoria, like she'd forgotten that noise was allowed in the house. "Lily doesn't laugh much anymore," she said quietly. "Not since all this started. She's too worried, too scared. 7 years old. And she's already learned that the people you love can be taken away without warning." Ethan understood that lesson too well. They worked until lunch, then ordered pizza because neither of them felt like cooking. The kids came downstairs covered in what looked like marker ink, apparently having spent the morning drawing elaborate maps of an imaginary kingdom where they were both royalty. "Noah's the king of the north, and I'm the queen of the south," Lily explained through a mouthful of pepperoni. "And we have a peace treaty, but also dragons." "Obviously," Ethan said. "What kind of kingdom doesn't have dragons?" "A boring one," Noah said seriously. Victoria watched them interact with something like wonder on her face, and Ethan realized she probably didn't see Lily like this very often. Happy. Unself-conscious. Acting like a normal kid instead of a small adult carrying the weight of adult problems. After lunch, Victoria suggested they all go to the park. "We need to be seen together," she explained. "People in town need to start recognizing us as a unit. The more normal it looks, the better." So they piled into Victoria's car, an expensive SUV that still had that new car smell, and drove to the small park on the edge of town. It was a perfect fall day, the kind that made you forget winter was coming, and the park was full of families enjoying the weather. Ethan felt exposed walking across the grass with Victoria beside him, and the kids running ahead. He knew people in this town, had built furniture for half of them, and he could already see the double takes, the whispered conversations, the curiosity. "Everyone's staring," he muttered. "Let them stare," Victoria said. "We're just a couple spending time with our kids." She reached for his hand. He made himself not pull away. They found a bench near the playground where they could watch Noah and Lily climb all over the equipment. Victoria sat close enough that their shoulders touched, and Ethan tried to look relaxed instead of like every muscle in his body was screaming at him to put distance between them. "You're very tense," Victoria observed. "I'm very aware that half the town is watching us right now." "Good. That's the point. Easy for you to say. You don't live here full time. I have to face these people after Monday." "What are you worried they'll think?" "That I'm moving on too fast. That I'm disrespecting Sarah's memory. That I'm using you, or you're using me, or we're both making a mistake." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Do you care what they think?" "I care what Noah thinks they think. Kids hear things. They repeat things. He doesn't need his classmates asking questions about his dad's new girlfriend. So after Monday, we'll make it clear we're just neighbors, friends, nothing romantic. You think people will buy that after seeing us here today? People believe what they want to believe. We'll give them a story that makes sense." Ethan wasn't sure he believed that, but he didn't argue. Instead, he watched Noah help Lily across the monkey bars, steadying her when she got scared, and felt something crack in his chest. Noah had been alone for 4 years, too. It hadn't occurred to Ethan until right now that maybe his son was just as hungry for connection as Lily was, just better at hiding it. "Your son's good with her," Victoria said. "He's good with everyone, takes after his mother that way." "What was she like?" Ethan didn't usually talk about Sarah with strangers, didn't usually talk about her with anyone except his mother, and even then, only when forced. But sitting here with Victoria, watching their kids play, it felt less like prying and more like sharing. She was kind, he said finally. Really genuinely kind in a way that most people aren't. She saw someone struggling and her first instinct was always to help. Drove me crazy sometimes because she'd give away money we didn't have or spend hours helping people who never returned the favor. She sounds wonderful. She was. She was also stubborn and messy, and she couldn't cook worth a damn, burned everything she touched. But she tried anyway because she liked the idea of making me dinner, even if the reality was we ended up ordering pizza most nights. Victoria smiled. How'd you meet? College. We were both at Ohio State. I was studying business, she was in education. We ended up in the same philosophy class. I thought she was annoying at first because she asked too many questions and derailed every lecture. When'd that change? When I actually listened to what she was asking, she wasn't being difficult, she was being curious. She wanted to understand things deeply, not just memorize answers for the test. Ethan found himself smiling at the memory. I started sitting next to her. We'd argue about Kant and Descartes over bad coffee in the student union. 3 months later, we were dating. 2 years later, we were married. That's fast. When you know, you know. Or at least that's what she said. I was terrified we were making a mistake. She told me marriage was just a mistake you committed to fixing together. I like that. Yeah, me too. Ethan's smile faded. And then she died, and I had to figure out how to fix everything alone. Victoria didn't offer empty platitudes, didn't tell him time heals all wounds or she's in a better place or any of the other useless things people said. She just sat there beside him, and somehow that was better. My ex-husband never knew me, she said after a while. We dated for 2 years, were married for 5, and I don't think he ever once asked me a real question about who I was or what I wanted. He asked about my day, my schedule, my plans, but never about me. Why'd you marry him? Because I was 22 and stupid, and he was charming and successful, and I thought that's what love was supposed to look like. She watched Lily slide down the slide, laughing. I got pregnant 6 months after the wedding. Lily was the only good thing that came out of that marriage. Does she see him much? Every other weekend, when he remembers to show up. Usually he cancels at the last minute. Business trip. Meeting he can't reschedule. Something always more important than his daughter. And now he wants full custody. Now he wants to win. It's not about Lily. It's about beating me. Ethan turned to look at her. You know that's insane, right? Using a kid as a weapon? I know, but knowing doesn't change it. I still have to fight. The afternoon stretched out, golden and temporary. Eventually they gathered up the kids and headed back to Victoria's house. Noah and Lily had moved past the awkward stage into genuine friendship, talking over each other about dragons and kingdoms and whether magic should be allowed in the peace treaty. Back at Victoria's kitchen, Ethan started to make excuses about needing to get home when Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. It's my lawyer, she said. She answered, put it on speaker. Victoria, we have a problem. The voice on the other end was male, older, with the kind of carefully controlled tone that meant bad news was coming. Marcus's team just filed a motion to introduce new evidence at Monday's hearing. What kind of evidence? Character witnesses? People who will testify that you're never home, that Lily's being raised by nannies and babysitters, that you prioritize work over family. That's not true. Doesn't matter if it's true. Matters if they can make it sound convincing. A pause. There's more. They're bringing up your relationship status. Specifically, they're arguing that Lily needs a stable 2-parent household and you can't provide that. Victoria glanced at Ethan. Actually, I can. I'm seeing someone. We've been together for 6 months. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, you're seeing someone. Yes. And you're just telling me this now? I wanted to keep it private until we were sure it was serious, but it is. He's here with me now, actually. His name is Ethan Carter. He has a son Noah's age. We're building a life together. More silence. Ethan could practically hear the lawyer calculating angles. Can you prove it? The lawyer asked finally. We've been seen together around town. We went to the park today with both kids. We can provide witnesses who've seen us as a couple. That's good. That's really good. But Victoria, if you're lying to me, I'm not lying. Ethan's right here. You can talk to him yourself. She thrust the phone at Ethan. He took it like it might explode. Hello? He said. Mr. Carter, this is Richard Walsh, Victoria's attorney. Can you confirm what she just told me? That we're together? Yeah. We've been seeing each other since spring. And you're willing to testify to that in court? Ethan met Victoria's eyes, saw the desperation there, the fear, the hope that he wouldn't back out now. Yes, he said, I'm willing to testify. Excellent. I'll need to prep you this weekend, Saturday morning, my office. We'll go over potential questions. Make sure your stories align. We'll be there, Victoria said, taking the phone back. She hung up and stood there gripping the phone so hard her knuckles went white. Thank you, she said quietly. I know that wasn't easy. Nothing about this is easy. No, but we're doing it anyway. Noah and Lily had gone quiet, sensing the tension. Ethan looked at his son. You okay with all this? He asked. Noah shrugged. Are you? Honestly, I have no idea. That's okay. Mom used to say not knowing was just another way of figuring it out. Ethan felt his throat tighten. She did say that. So maybe we just figure it out as we go. Yeah, maybe. That night, after Ethan and Noah had gone home and Lily was asleep, Ethan stood in his workshop running his hands over the table he'd been building for the Hendersons. The wood was smooth under his palms, familiar, real. This he understood. Measurements and angles and the satisfaction of creating something solid out of raw materials. What he didn't understand was how he'd gone from a quiet, controlled life to lying to lawyers and pretending to be someone's partner, and teaching his son that sometimes the right thing looked a lot like the wrong thing, depending on who was watching. His phone buzzed. Another text from Victoria. Thank you for today. I know this is asking more than I have any right to ask. He stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Your daughter stood on my porch in the rain and asked for help. That's not the kind of thing you walk away from. Her response came quickly. Still, thank you. Ethan set down his phone and went back to work on the table, sanding edges that didn't need sanding, trying not to think about Monday or courtrooms or little girls who'd learned too young that love wasn't permanent. Trying not to think about how much he'd already started to care despite every instinct telling him not to. Saturday morning came with rain again, softer this time, more mist than downpour. Ethan and Victoria drove to the lawyer's office in Columbus while Noah stayed with Ethan's mother and Lily stayed with Victoria's assistant. Richard Walsh turned out to be exactly what Ethan expected. Mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of measured intensity that came from years of courtroom battles. His office was all dark wood and leather chairs, the walls covered with diplomas and photos of Walsh shaking hands with people who looked important. Sit, Walsh said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. We have a lot to cover. For the next 3 hours, he drilled them. How they met, when they met, first date, first kiss, pet names, inside jokes. He asked Victoria what Ethan's favorite food was, and asked Ethan what Victoria did to relax, and caught them both when they hesitated too long before answering. You're supposed to be in love, Walsh said, not unkindly. That means you know these things without thinking. Marcus's lawyers are going to be looking for exactly this kind of hesitation. We've only known each other a week, Ethan said. The court doesn't know that. As far as anyone's concerned, you've been together for 6 months. Act like it. So they tried again. Memorized details about each other, built a shared history out of nothing, learned to lie without flinching. By the time they left the office, Ethan's head was pounding and Victoria looked exhausted. You okay? He asked as they drove back. I'm terrified I'm going to forget something, say the wrong thing, get caught. Then we tell the truth, that we're helping each other, that this started as an arrangement and became something real. But it's not real, isn't it? We're spending time together. Our kids are becoming friends. We're learning about each other. Maybe it's not romantic, but it's real enough. Victoria looked at him. You're better at this than I expected. At lying? At finding truth in the lies. I had a good teacher. Sarah was convinced that honesty and truth weren't always the same thing, that sometimes being honest meant telling the emotional truth, even if the facts were complicated. I like that. Yeah, me too. They drove in silence for a while, watching the rain streak across the windshield. What happens after Monday? Victoria asked quietly. Assuming we win, we go back to being neighbors. Just neighbors. That was the deal. Right, the deal. She paused. What if Lily doesn't want that? Kids are resilient. She'll adjust. Will she? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. Sunday was a blur of final preparations. They had dinner together, all four of them, practicing being a family. Lily set the table while Noah helped Ethan make pasta. Victoria opened wine and pretended to know what she was doing with the garlic bread. It felt almost normal, almost real. That night, after Noah was asleep, Ethan stood at his bedroom window looking across at Victoria's house. He could see her silhouette moving past the windows, probably pacing, probably running through scenarios in her head for the 100th time. His phone buzzed. Can't sleep. Too nervous. He texted back, Me either. What if we lose? We won't. You can't know that. No, but I can choose to believe it anyway. A long pause, then, thank you for everything. Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you. Ethan set down his phone and climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. Tomorrow, they would walk into a courtroom and lie under oath. Tomorrow, they would fight for a little girl neither of them had known 2 weeks ago. Tomorrow, everything would change, one way or another. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but all he could see was Lily's face on his porch in the rain, asking for help he hadn't known how to give, asking for a father by Friday, asking for someone to care enough to stay. And somewhere in the darkness, he heard Sarah's voice one more time. Jump first, Ethan. The landing will take care of itself. All right, he whispered. I'm jumping. The first thing Ethan noticed when he woke up Tuesday morning was the silence. Not the usual silence of his house, the familiar quiet he'd built his life around for 4 years. This was different, heavier, like the world was holding its breath and waiting to see what he'd do next. He rolled over and checked his phone. 6:30. No messages from Victoria, which probably meant she was either still asleep or already up and spiraling through worst-case scenarios in her head. The hearing was over. They'd won. Lily was staying with her mother, so why did Ethan's chest feel like someone was standing on it? He dragged himself out of bed and went downstairs to find Noah already at the kitchen table, eating cereal and drawing what looked like a very detailed dragon. You're up early, Ethan said. Couldn't sleep. Yeah, me either. Noah looked up from his drawing. Are we still going to see Lily? And there it was. The question Ethan had been avoiding since they walked out of that courtroom yesterday afternoon. I don't know, bud. But you said we were helping them. You didn't say anything about stopping. The help was for the court case. The case is over. So that's it? We just pretend we don't know them anymore? Ethan poured himself coffee and tried to figure out how to explain this to an 8-year-old. It's not that simple. It seems pretty simple to me. Either we're friends with them or we're not. We barely know them, Noah. We know them better than we know most people. We had dinner with them like 5 times. We went to the park. I helped Lily with her math homework. Noah put down his pencil. She asked me if we could build that dragon castle we were talking about. I said, yes. Was I lying? You weren't lying. You just didn't know the whole situation. What situation? That you were pretending to like her mom? I wasn't pretending to like her. I was pretending we were together romantically. That's different. Is it? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. His phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Victoria. Can you come over? Need to talk. He showed it to Noah. Looks like we're about to find out what happens next. Can I come? Yeah, get dressed. 20 minutes later, they were standing on Victoria's porch. Ethan knocked, and the door opened almost immediately. Victoria looked like she'd slept even less than he had, still in pajamas, hair loose around her shoulders, eyes red-rimmed. Thanks for coming, she said, stepping back to let them in. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, saw Noah, and came running down. You're here. Mom said you might not come back. Why would she say that? Noah asked, shooting Ethan a look that clearly said, I told you so. Because the court thing is over, Lily said matter-of-factly. That's what you were helping us with. So now you don't have to pretend anymore. We weren't pretending about being friends, Noah said. That part was real. Really? Really? Lily looked at her mother. See? I told you. Victoria's face softened. Go play upstairs. The adults need to talk. The kids disappeared and Ethan followed Victoria into the kitchen. She already had coffee made, poured him a cup without asking, and they stood there on opposite sides of the counter, like they were negotiating a business deal instead of figuring out what the hell happened to their lives in the past 2 weeks. I owe you an explanation, Victoria said finally. For what? For what I said in the courtroom. About us. Ethan's stomach tightened. He'd been trying not to think about that moment, about standing in front of the judge while Victoria's lawyer asked her to describe their relationship, and she'd said words that sounded too real to be fake. You said what you needed to say, Ethan told her. It's fine. It's not fine. I crossed a line. What line? Victoria set down her coffee cup. When Walsh asked me what you meant to me, I was supposed to say you were my partner, that we were building a life together. That's what we rehearsed. I remember. But that's not what I said. I said you were the first person in years who made me feel like I wasn't fighting alone. I said you showed up when I needed someone and you didn't ask for anything in return. I said Lily felt safe with you in a way she hasn't felt safe since her father left. Ethan remembered. He'd been standing right there, watching her face, seeing something shift in her expression when she answered. That wasn't part of the script, Victoria continued. That was just true. And I shouldn't have said it because it made this whole thing more complicated than it needed to be. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know I wasn't manipulating you. I wasn't trying to make you feel obligated or guilty or whatever. I just got caught up in the moment and forgot we were supposed to be lying. Ethan leaned against the counter. You want to know what I was thinking when you said all that? What? I was thinking about how Sarah used to say that the best lies are the ones wrapped around truth. And I was thinking that maybe what you said wasn't a lie at all. Maybe it was just honest. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. What are we doing here, Ethan? I don't know. We can't keep pretending. Who's pretending? Both of us. We're pretending this was just about the court case. Pretending it's easy to go back to being strangers now that it's over. Pretending our kids aren't upstairs right now building a friendship that's going to break their hearts when we pull them apart. So, what do you want me to say? That we should keep this going? Fake it for the kids? I don't want you to fake anything, Victoria's voice cracked. I want you to tell me the truth. Do you want to walk away? The question hung in the air between them. Ethan thought about the past 2 weeks. Thought about family dinners and trips to the park, and the way Lily had started calling him by his first name instead of Mr. Carter. Thought about Noah laughing more than he had in years. Thought about Victoria sitting next to him on that courtroom bench, her hand in his, and how for just a moment it had felt like they were actually in this together instead of just performing. No, he said quietly. I don't want to walk away. Then don't. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I'm a mess, Victoria. I'm a widower who's been hiding from life for 4 years. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let people in. I don't even know if I'm capable of it anymore. You let me in. I let you use me for a court case. That's different. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you didn't just show up for the hearing. You showed up every day. You had dinner with us. You helped Lily with her homework. You made Noah part of this even though you were terrified it would hurt him. That's not using. That's caring. Ethan felt his throat tighten. I don't know what you want from me. I want you to stop running. I'm not running. You've been running since the day your wife died. You built a whole life around not getting close to anyone, not risking anything, not feeling anything too deeply. And now you're standing here trying to convince both of us that walking away is the safe choice when we both know it's just the scared choice. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I spent 3 years in a marriage where I was invisible, where my husband looked through me instead of at me, where I convinced myself that being lonely in a relationship was better than being lonely alone. And then I left and I swore I'd never let anyone make me feel that small again. Victoria's voice was shaking now. But you don't make me feel small. You make me feel seen, and that's terrifying because it means I could lose it. So what are you saying? I'm saying I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's real or if we're both just desperate for connection or if we're making a huge mistake. But I know I want to find out. And I think you do too. Ethan stared at her across the kitchen counter. This woman he'd known for less than 2 weeks. This stranger who somehow knew exactly what he was afraid of. What if I can't give you what you need? He asked quietly. What if you already are? Footsteps on the stairs made them both turn. Noah and Lily appeared in the doorway, holding between them what looked like a poster board covered in drawings. We made something, Lily announced. We can see that, Victoria said. What is it? A plan, Noah said. For the Dragon Castle. We figured out the whole design. We just need materials. And permission to build it in the backyard, Lily added. Which backyard? Ethan asked. The kids looked at each other. Both, base, they said in unison. It's going to connect the 2 yards, Noah explained, like a bridge so we can go back and forth. That's ambitious, Victoria said. That's the point, Lily said. Bridges are supposed to connect things. Ethan met Victoria's eyes over the kids' heads. She raised an eyebrow like she was asking a question. He took a breath, made a decision. All right, he said. Let's build a bridge. The next few days fell into a rhythm that surprised Ethan with how natural it felt. He'd go to his workshop in the mornings while Noah was at school, work on furniture orders, then walk over to Victoria's around lunch. Sometimes she'd be working from home, sitting at her kitchen table with her laptop and about 6 different screens open, talking on conference calls with people who sounded important and slightly terrified of her. Other times she'd be upstairs helping Lily with a school project or reading through contracts while Lily did homework beside her. They'd have lunch together, usually something simple, sandwiches or leftover pasta, and they'd talk about nothing important. The weather, the news, what the kids were learning in school. Small talk that gradually became real talk, the kind of conversation that happened when you stopped performing and started existing in the same space. After school, the kids would tear through both yards, dragging wood scraps and rope and whatever else they could find for their bridge project. Ethan had taken over the actual construction because he didn't trust 2 8-year-olds with power tools, but Noah and Lily were adamant about being involved in every decision. The bridge needs to be at least 6 feet off the ground, Lily insisted one afternoon while Ethan was measuring posts. Why 6 feet? So dragons can walk under it. There are no dragons in Ohio, sweetheart. Not yet, but when they come, we'll be ready. Noah nodded seriously. She's right. You have to plan ahead. Ethan looked at Victoria, who was sitting on her back porch watching the whole thing with barely contained laughter. Your daughter thinks we're building dragon infrastructure, he called over. My daughter has vision, Victoria called back, unlike some people. The bridge took shape slowly. Ethan worked on it in the evenings after dinner, sometimes alone, sometimes with Victoria sitting nearby reading or working on her laptop. They didn't talk much during these sessions, didn't need to. There was something comfortable about the silence, the sound of his saw, and her typing mixing together until it felt like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. One night, almost a week after the hearing, Ethan was finishing the railing when Victoria came outside with 2 beers. Thought you could use a break, she said, handing him one. Thanks. They sat on the back steps of her porch, looking at the half-finished bridge. The sun was setting, turning everything orange and gold, and Ethan could hear Noah and Lily inside watching a movie. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Shoot. What changed your mind? About walking away? Ethan took a drink of his beer. Honestly, the kids. Watching them together, seeing how happy Noah's been, I realized that keeping my life small and controlled wasn't protecting him. It was just making him small, too. That's not what I expected you to say. What did you expect? Something about me. About us. That too, Ethan admitted. But mostly the kids. Everything I've done for 4 years has been about making sure Noah was okay, making sure he felt safe and stable, and like the world wasn't going to fall apart again. And I thought that meant keeping everything predictable. No risks, no changes, no chance of loss. But that's not actually safety. No, that's just fear dressed up as protection. He turned to look at her. You asked me in the kitchen if I wanted to walk away. The truth is, I've been walking away from everything for 4 years. From friends who wanted to help, from family who wanted to be involved, from any possibility of feeling something real because real meant it could hurt. And now? Now I'm tired of walking, and I think Noah is too. Victoria was quiet for a moment, peeling the label off her beer bottle. I need to tell you something. Okay? My lawyer called today. Marcus's team is filing an appeal. Ethan felt his stomach drop. What? They're not accepting the custody ruling. They want a new hearing with a different judge. Can they do that? They can try. Walsh says it's a long shot, that the original ruling was solid, but Marcus has enough money to keep this going for months if he wants to. So what does that mean for us? It means we might have to do this again. Another hearing, more testimony, more pretending. She paused. Except it wouldn't be pretending anymore, would it? No, I guess it wouldn't. Are you okay with that? With this dragging out? With being involved in my mess for the foreseeable future? Ethan thought about it. Thought about court dates and lawyers and the possibility of months of legal battles. Thought about what that would mean for Noah, for Lily, for whatever this thing was between him and Victoria. Yeah, he said finally. I'm okay with it. Why? Because Lily's worth fighting for, and so are you. Victoria's eyes went bright. She looked away quickly, blinking hard, and Ethan realized she was trying not to cry. Sorry, she said. I'm not usually this emotional. It's just been a lot. You don't have to apologize. I feel like I do. I dragged you into this disaster, and now it's getting worse instead of better. You didn't drag me anywhere. I walked in with my eyes open. Did you? Because I'm pretty sure you thought this would be over after one court appearance, not an extended legal battle with my vindictive ex-husband. Plans change. You adapt. Victoria laughed, but it sounded brittle. You're handling this better than I am. I doubt that. You're the one who's been fighting this fight for months. I just showed up at the end. You showed up when it mattered. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky darken. Inside, the kids had started arguing about something, their voices rising and falling in the particular rhythm of 8-year-olds who were friends, but also deeply committed to being right. They sound like siblings, Victoria observed. Yeah, they do. How do you feel about that? Ethan considered. Ask me in a month. That's fair? The back door opened and Lily stuck her head out. Noah says the dragon in the movie is a wyvern, not a dragon. That's wrong, right? A wyvern is a type of dragon, Victoria said patiently. They're both correct. But Noah says a lot of things. Go compromise. Lily disappeared back inside. The argument continued. She's stubborn, Victoria said. Wonder where she gets that. I'm not stubborn. I'm persistent. That's the same thing. It's absolutely not. Stubborn is refusing to change your mind. Persistent is refusing to give up. Completely different. Ethan smiled. If you say so. I do say so. They finished their beers and went inside to referee the dragon debate. By the time they got both kids ready for bed, it was almost 9. Ethan was about to head home when Victoria caught his arm. Stay for a minute? She asked. Yeah, okay. They ended up back in the kitchen. Victoria poured wine this time, expensive stuff that Ethan couldn't pronounce, and they sat at the counter like they had that first night, except everything was different now. I've been thinking, Victoria said, about what happens if we lose the appeal. You won't. But if we do, if Marcus gets custody, what happens to us? What do you mean? I mean, would you stick around? If Lily wasn't here, if it was just me dealing with visitation schedules and court orders and trying to see my daughter every other weekend, would you stay? The question caught him off guard. Do you want me to? I'm asking what you want. Ethan set down his wine glass. I don't know how to answer that. A month ago, my entire life was me and Noah and my workshop. Now I'm building bridges in backyards and having dinner with neighbors, and my kid has a friend he actually talks to. I don't know what I want because I didn't know this was an option. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Victoria nodded slowly. That's fair. I'm not trying to pressure you. I just need to know if you're in this for Lily or if there's more to it than that. What do you think? I think you're scared. I think you're still grieving your wife and you're terrified of caring about someone new because it means admitting she's really gone. I think you want to be here, but you're fighting yourself about whether you deserve to be. Ethan felt like she'd just reached into his chest and pulled out every fear he'd been trying to ignore. You've got me pretty well figured out, he said quietly. I recognize the symptoms. I spent 2 years after my divorce convinced I'd never trust anyone again. Convinced that being alone was safer than risking another relationship that could fall apart. She paused. And then you showed up on my doorstep returning my runaway daughter, and I realized being safe wasn't the same as being okay. Are you okay now? I'm getting there. Slowly. With help. From me? From you. From Lily. From finally admitting I can't do everything alone no matter how much I want to. Ethan reached across the counter and took her hand. Her fingers were warm this time, not cold like that first morning when they'd practiced standing close together. I'm in this, he said. Not just for Lily. For you too. I don't know what that means long term. I don't know if I'm ready for whatever this is turning into. But I'm not walking away. That's all I needed to hear. She squeezed his hand once, then let go. Ethan stood to leave. Ethan? Victoria said as he reached the door. Yeah? Thank you for everything, for staying, for caring, for not running even though I know you want to. I'm done running, he said, at least for now. He walked home through the dark, the bridge half visible in the shadows between their yards, and found Noah still awake in his room. You're up late, Ethan said. Couldn't sleep, too much thinking. About what? Noah put down the book he'd been reading. Are we going to live here forever? In this house? I don't know. Why? Because if we are, maybe we should paint my room. It's still the color Mom picked when I was a baby. I'm too old for light blue with clouds. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. What color do you want? I don't know, something cooler, maybe dark blue or gray. We can do that. This weekend if you want. Really? Really? Noah was quiet for a moment. Dad, are you and Victoria dating? The question shouldn't have surprised him, but it did. It's complicated, Ethan said. That's what adults always say when they don't want to explain something. Fair point. The truth is, I don't know what we're doing. We're friends. We're helping each other. We're figuring it out as we go. Do you like her? Yeah, I do. Good. She's nice. And Lily's cool even though she's bossy sometimes. Most people are bossy sometimes. You're bossy all the time. I'm your father. It's my job to be bossy. Noah grinned. Chamon. Can Lily and Victoria come when we paint my room? Why? Because Victoria's good at colors. She helped Lily pick out a room and it looks really good, and Lily can help move furniture. You just want more people to do the work for you. Maybe. But also it would be fun, like a family project. There was that word again. Family. Ethan ruffled Noah's hair. Get some sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning. That's adult speak for yes. That's adult speak for I need time to think. Same thing. Ethan turned off the light and headed to his own room, but sleep didn't come easily. He lay there thinking about paint colors and bridge construction and the way Victoria's hand had felt in his. Thinking about Noah asking if they were dating and Lily asking if the bridge could support dragons, and the way both kids had seamlessly worked themselves into each other's lives without asking permission. Thinking about Sarah and whether she'd be happy about any of this, or furious that he was moving on, or maybe both at the same time. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Victoria. Lily wants to know if Noah can come over tomorrow after school to help finish planning the bridge. She made diagrams. He smiled and typed back. Of course she did. Tell her yes. You sure? I know we're seeing a lot of each other lately. I'm sure. Besides, someone needs to supervise the dragon planning. You're enjoying this, aren't you? More than I expected to. Me too. Good night, Ethan. Good night. He set down the phone and closed his eyes, and for the first time in 4 years, the silence in his house didn't feel quite so heavy. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Ethan was making breakfast when someone knocked on the front door. He opened it to find a woman in an expensive suit holding a clipboard. Ethan Carter? She asked. That's me. I'm Jennifer Morrison, Family Services Investigator with the county. I'm here to conduct a home visit as part of the Hale custody case. Ethan's stomach dropped. I wasn't aware there was going to be a home visit. It's standard procedure for custody appeals. Marcus Hale's attorney requested an investigation into the home environment where Lily would be spending time. She consulted her clipboard. That would include your residence since you're listed as Victoria Hale's partner. Right, of course, come in. He led her inside, painfully aware of how the house probably looked. Not dirty, but lived in. Noah's backpack on the floor, dishes in the sink, sawdust tracked in from the workshop. Jennifer Morrison didn't seem to care. She walked through systematically, taking notes, asking questions about how often Lily stayed over, where she slept when she did, what kind of activities they did together. And your relationship with Ms. Hale, she said. How long have you been together? 6 months. Living separately? For now. We're taking things slow for the kids' sake. But you're planning to move in together eventually? Ethan hadn't planned that far ahead, but he heard himself say, "We're discussing it." More notes, more questions. By the time she left, Ethan felt like he'd been through an interrogation. He texted Victoria immediately. Just had a home visit from Family Services. Did you know about this? Her response came back fast. Walsh just called. Marcus requested it. They're doing the same thing at my place this afternoon. Are you okay? I'm fine, just caught off guard. What did you tell them? The truth, that we're together, that Lily spends time here, that we're building a life. Thank you. I'm sorry this keeps getting more complicated. Stop apologizing. We're in this together. Are we? Yeah, we are. That afternoon, Victoria called him in a panic. The investigator asked Lily questions, she said without preamble. About you? About us? About whether she feels safe here. What did she say? She told them you were building her a bridge so dragons could walk underneath. She told them you helped her with her math homework, and that Noah was teaching her about constellations. She told them she felt safer than she had in months. That's good, right? It's perfect. It's exactly what we needed her to say. But Ethan, she wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to help the case. She was just telling the truth. I know. Do you? Do you understand what that means? It means she really does feel safe with you. It means this isn't pretend for her anymore. It's real. Is that a problem? It's a responsibility. If we lose, if Marcus gets custody, she's going to be devastated. And it won't just be about losing me. It'll be about losing you too. Ethan sat down heavily on his couch. So what are you saying? I'm saying we need to be sure. I need to know you're not going to bail if things get hard. I need to know you're committed to seeing this through no matter what happens. I already told you I'm in this. You told me you're in it for now. That's not the same as being in it permanently. Victoria, I'm not trying to pressure you. I just need to protect my daughter. She's already lost her father once. I can't let her lose another parent figure because we rushed into something we weren't ready for. The words stung, but Ethan understood them. What do you want me to do? I want you to think about what you really want, not just what feels good right now, but what you want long term. Because if the answer is you don't know, that's okay. We can slow down. We can put some distance between us until you figure it out. But if we keep doing this, keep building this thing between our families, there's no going back. The kids will be attached. We'll be attached. And if it falls apart, everyone gets hurt. Let me call you back, Ethan said. He hung up and sat there on his couch, staring at nothing. Everything Victoria said was right. He'd been taking this one day at a time, not thinking about the future, not planning beyond the next meal or the next bridge building session. He told himself he was being present, living in the moment. But maybe he was just avoiding the real question. Did he want this to be permanent? Did he want Victoria and Lily in his life forever, not just until the custody case resolved? Was he ready to stop being the grieving widower who lived alone with his son and became part of something bigger, messier, more complicated? He thought about Sarah. Really thought about her for the first time in days. Tried to imagine what she would say if she were here. And he realized with a clarity that was almost painful that Sarah would tell him to stop overthinking and just choose. Would tell him that being scared was fine, but being paralyzed by fear was wasting time he didn't get back. Would tell him that Noah deserved a father who was fully alive, not just going through the motions. Would tell him to jump. He called Victoria back. I want this to be permanent, he said before she could speak. I want you and Lily in our lives. I want family dinners and bridge building projects and all the complicated, messy reality that comes with it. I'm scared out of my mind and I have no idea if I'm ready, but I'm choosing it anyway. Silence on the other end, then quietly. Are you sure? No, but I'm sure I want to try. That's enough for me. Yeah? Yeah. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. So what now? Now we keep doing what we're doing, except we stop pretending it's temporary. And if we screw it up, then we figure it out together. That's what people do. I'm not good at that. The figuring it out together part. You're better than you think. You just haven't had practice in a while. They talked for another hour about nothing and everything, making plans for the weekend, discussing Noah's room painting project, debating whether the bridge really needed to be dragon-proof or if they could compromise with dragon-resistant. And somewhere in that conversation, Ethan felt something shift inside him, a letting go of the tight control he'd been clutching for 4 years, an acceptance that messy and complicated might actually be better than safe and predictable, an understanding that Sarah was gone, but he was still here. And being here meant living, not just surviving. When he finally hung up, Noah was standing in the doorway watching him. Were you talking to Victoria? Noah asked. Yeah. Are you guys together now? Like, for real? Yeah, bud, I think we are. Noah's face split into a grin. Finally, I was getting tired of waiting for you to figure it out. When did you get so smart? I told you, I've always been smart. You just started listening. That weekend, they painted Noah's room. All 4 of them. Victoria brought paint samples and Lily brought opinions, and somehow they settled on a deep blue-gray that Noah declared was perfect. They spent 2 days painting and laughing and getting more paint on themselves than on the walls. At one point, Ethan looked up from rolling the ceiling to find Victoria watching him with something soft in her expression. What? He asked. Nothing. Just happy. Yeah, me too. And he was. Genuinely, unexpectedly happy in a way he hadn't been since before Sarah died. The bridge got finished on a Sunday afternoon 3 weeks after they'd started it. It wasn't fancy, just a simple wooden walkway connecting their 2 yards about 4 feet off the ground, with railings and steps on both sides. But when Lily and Noah ran across it for the first time, shrieking about dragons and kingdoms and victory, Ethan felt like they'd built something that mattered. Victoria stood beside him, her hand in his, watching the kids play. Thank you, she said. For what? For staying, for building bridges, for being exactly what we needed even when you didn't know that's what you were doing. Ethan squeezed her hand. I think you did the same for me. That night, after the kids were asleep and the dishes were done, Ethan and Victoria sat on the bridge they'd built, feet dangling over the edge, looking up at the stars. Walsh called, Victoria said. The appeal hearing is scheduled for next month. We'll be ready. I know. I'm not worried about that anymore. What are you worried about? Nothing, actually. For the first time in months, I'm not worried about anything. Ethan put his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him. That's terrifying, she added. What is? Not being worried, not waiting for the other shoe to drop, just being happy. Yeah, it is. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars, and Ethan thought about how much had changed in a month, how a terrified little girl knocking on his door in the rain had somehow led to this, sitting on a bridge with a woman he was falling for, their kids asleep in their separate houses, a future that was uncertain but possible stretching out ahead of them. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what he'd planned, but it was real and messy, and more than he'd let himself hope for in years. I think I'm falling in love with you, Victoria said quietly. Ethan's heart stopped, then started again, faster. I think I'm falling in love with you too, he said. That's inconvenient. Extremely. What are we going to do about it? I have no idea. Victoria laughed and kissed him, and for the first time since Sarah died, Ethan let himself fall without worrying about the landing. The morning of the appeal hearing arrived with freezing rain and a sky the color of wet concrete. Ethan stood at his bedroom window, watching ice collect on the bridge between their yards, and tried to remember the last time he'd been this nervous about anything. His phone showed 5:30. 2 hours until they had to leave for Columbus. 2 hours to get himself together and convince Victoria that everything would be fine, even though neither of them believed it. He went downstairs to find Noah already awake, sitting at the kitchen table in his pajamas. Couldn't sleep either? Ethan asked. Lily texted me. She's scared. When did you guys start texting? Victoria gave her a phone last week, for emergencies. Noah showed him the message. 3 words. What if we lose? Ethan sat down across from his son. What did you tell her? That we won't. That you and her mom are going to make sure she's safe. Noah looked up at him. That's true, right? We're going to try our best. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. But it's all we've got. Noah was quiet for a moment. Are you scared? Ethan thought about lying, about being the strong, confident father who always had the answers. But Noah was 8 years old and smart enough to see through bullshit. Yeah, Ethan said. I'm scared. What if they take Lily away? Then we fight harder. We appeal again. We don't give up. And if that doesn't work? Then we figure out how to be there for her anyway, through visits, through phone calls, whatever it takes. Noah nodded slowly. Mom used to say being scared just meant you cared about something enough to fight for it. She was right about that. She was right about a lot of things. Yeah, she was. They sat in the pre-dawn quiet until Ethan heard movement from Victoria's house. He looked out the window and saw lights coming on, saw her silhouette moving past the windows, and grabbed his phone. You up? Unfortunately, can't get Lily to eat breakfast. She's too nervous. Noah says she texted him. They text constantly. It's adorable and slightly concerning. Want us to come over? Please. 5 minutes later, Ethan and Noah were standing in Victoria's kitchen, watching Lily push scrambled eggs around her plate, while Victoria tried not to look like she was having a breakdown. You need to eat something, Victoria said for what was probably the 10th time. I'm not hungry. You're going to be sitting in a courtroom for hours. You need energy. I said I'm not hungry. Lily, Mom, stop. Please just stop. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. She turned away quickly, but Ethan saw her face, saw the fear and exhaustion, and barely controlled panic. Hey, he said quietly, touching her arm. Give her a minute. She needs to eat. She needs to feel like she has some control over something, even if it's just breakfast. Victoria took a shaky breath. I don't know how to do this, how to be calm when I'm terrified. You don't have to be calm. You just have to be present. Noah had sat down next to Lily at the table. You know what my dad makes when I'm too nervous to eat? Lily shook her head. Toast with butter and cinnamon sugar. It's not real food, so your brain doesn't get mad at you for eating it. That sounds good. Want me to make you some? Yeah, okay. Noah got up and started rummaging through Victoria's kitchen like he'd lived there his whole life. Found bread, found butter, found cinnamon. Ethan watched his son move through the space with easy confidence and felt something swell in his chest. When had Noah gotten so capable? When had he learned to read situations and offer exactly what someone needed? Sarah would have been proud. Victoria leaned against Ethan just slightly, just enough that he knew she needed the support. He put his arm around her waist, and they stood there watching the kids, neither of them speaking, both of them trying to believe this would work out. An hour later, they were in Victoria's car heading toward Columbus. The kids were in the back seat, Noah showing Lily something on his tablet, both of them quiet but not scared. Victoria drove while Ethan sat in the passenger seat watching the frozen landscape slide past. Walsh called this morning, Victoria said quietly. Marcus's lawyers are bringing in experts, child psychologists who will testify that Lily needs a traditional family structure. We have experts too. Not like theirs. Marcus hired the best money can buy. People who'll say whatever he pays them to say. The truth still matters. Does it? Because I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure anything matters except who has more money and better connections. Ethan reached over and took her hand. We have something Marcus doesn't. What's that? Lily's actual voice. She gets to talk to the judge today, tell them what she wants. That matters more than any expert testimony. What if she freezes? What if she's too scared to speak? She won't be. She's your daughter. She's been watching you fight for her all year. She knows how to be brave. Victoria's grip tightened on his hand. I'm so glad you're here. Where else would I be? The courthouse in Columbus was exactly as imposing as Ethan remembered from the first hearing. All marble and mahogany and the kind of institutional authority designed to make people feel small. They met Walsh in the lobby, went over last-minute strategy, then headed to the courtroom. Marcus Hale was already there. Ethan had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The man was maybe 40, expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of polished confidence that came from never being told no. He sat at his table looking relaxed, almost bored, like this was just another business meeting instead of a fight for his daughter's future. Next to him sat a woman who had to be the fiancée. Young, blonde, smiling nervously. She looked terrified and out of her depth. Marcus saw Victoria, and his expression didn't change, didn't acknowledge her, didn't even glance at Lily. He won't look at her, Victoria whispered. He's been doing this all year. Acts like she doesn't exist unless there's a camera or a judge watching. That's going to work against him. You'd think, but he's good at performing when it counts. The judge entered and everyone stood. The Honorable Patricia Chen, mid-50s, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that suggested she'd heard every lie and seen every manipulation tactic in the book. Be seated, she said. Let's begin. Marcus's lawyer went first. Gregory Sutton, silver-haired and smooth, the kind of attorney who probably charged $1,000 an hour and was worth every penny. He painted a picture of Marcus as the devoted father who'd been unfairly shut out of his daughter's life by a career-obsessed mother. Brought in a child psychologist who testified that children need stability, routine, a parent who's consistently present. Brought in Marcus's fiancée who talked about how excited she was to be a stepmother, how she'd already decorated a room for Lily, how Marcus talked about his daughter constantly. It was polished, professional, completely convincing if you didn't know it was all performance. Then Walsh stood up. He called Victoria first. She walked to the stand looking composed, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands shook slightly as she was sworn in. Walsh took her through the basics, her job, her schedule, her involvement in Lily's life. Then he shifted. Ms. Hale, can you tell the court about your relationship with Ethan Carter? We've been together for 7 months now. He's been an incredible support system for both Lily and myself. And how has Mr. Carter integrated into Lily's life? He's become someone she trusts completely, someone she feels safe with. He helps with homework, attends school events, treats her like she matters. Unlike her biological father? Sutton objected. The judge sustained it. Walsh rephrased. How often does Marcus Hale see Lily outside of court-mandated custody time? He's canceled the last 6 scheduled visits. Work emergencies, travel conflicts, always something more important. And when he does see her, he takes pictures, posts them on social media, makes it look like he's Father of the Year, then drops her off early because he has dinner plans. The testimony continued. Victoria held steady, answered every question, didn't let Sutton rattle her during cross-examination. Then Walsh called Ethan. Walking to the stand felt surreal. Ethan had never been in a courtroom before the first hearing, and now here he was about to testify under oath about a relationship that had started as a lie and turned into something real. Walsh walked him through the story they'd built. How they met, how they fell for each other, how Noah and Lily had bonded. Mr. Carter, you're a widower, correct? Yes. How long has it been since your wife passed? 4 years. And in those 4 years, have you dated anyone else? No. Why not? Ethan glanced at Victoria. I wasn't ready. I was focused on raising my son and getting through each day. The idea of letting someone new into our lives felt impossible. What changed? Victoria and Lily changed it. They needed help, and I realized my son needed to see that helping people mattered more than protecting ourselves from getting hurt. Do you love Victoria Hale? The question caught him off guard. They'd practiced everything, but not that. Yes, Ethan said. I do. And Lily? She's become part of our family. My son considers her his sister. I consider her my responsibility. Your responsibility how? I'm committed to making sure she grows up safe and loved and supported, whether that's through Victoria or through whatever role I need to play in her life. Walsh nodded. No further questions. Sutton's cross-examination was brutal. He went after Ethan's grief, suggested he was using Victoria to replace his dead wife, implied the relationship was too new to be stable, asked pointed questions about whether Ethan was prepared to be a stepfather or if he was just playing house until the novelty wore off. Ethan held his ground, answered honestly, refused to get defensive. Finally, Sutton sat down and the judge called for a recess. In the hallway, Victoria grabbed Ethan's hand. You were amazing. I just told the truth. That's what made it amazing. Walsh joined them, looking cautiously optimistic. Judge Chen's sharp. She sees through performance, but Marcus's team built a compelling case about stability and traditional family structures. So what's our next move? Victoria asked. Lily testifies after lunch. That's when we win or lose this thing. The afternoon session started with Lily walking to the witness stand looking impossibly small. The court had brought in a child advocate to sit with her, make her comfortable, but Lily barely seemed to notice. She was focused on the judge. Hello, Lily, Judge Chen said gently. I'm going to ask you some questions. Just answer honestly, okay? There are no wrong answers here. Lily nodded. Do you know why we're here today? Because my dad wants me to live with him instead of my mom. And how do you feel about that? I don't want to live with him. Can you tell me why? Lily took a breath. Because he doesn't actually want me. He wants to win. He wants to beat my mom because she left him and started a company and got successful without him. Sutton stood. Your Honor, the child is clearly being coached. Sit down, Mr. Sutton, Judge Chen said sharply. Lily, has anyone told you to say these things? No, I figured it out myself. I'm 7, not stupid. A ripple of surprised laughter went through the courtroom. Judge Chen's lips twitched. Go on, she said. My dad doesn't come to my school stuff. He forgets my birthday. He cancels visits because he has business trips. And when he does see me, he spends the whole time on his phone or making me take pictures for Instagram. Lily's voice got stronger. But my mom comes to everything. She helps with homework even when she's tired. She reads to me every night. And Ethan and Noah, they're there too now. They built me a bridge in the backyard so I could walk between houses. Ethan helps me with math. Noah teaches me about stars. You like Ethan and Noah? I love them. They make my mom happy. They make me happy. We're a family now. What about your father's fiancée? Have you met her? Once. She was nice, but she doesn't know me. She asked if I liked princesses. I'm 7, not 4. I like dragons. More laughter. Judge Chen was openly smiling now. Lily, if I let you choose where you live, what would you choose? With my mom and with Ethan and Noah, because that's my family. Even though your father can give you more material things, a bigger house, expensive toys. Lily looked confused. Why would I want that stuff if I'm not happy? Judge Chen wrote something down. Thank you, Lily. You can step down now. Lily walked back to Victoria, climbed into her lap despite being too big for it, and buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Victoria held her tight, tears streaming down her face. Sutton tried to recover during his closing argument, talked about stability and resources and traditional values, but Ethan could tell it was over. Judge Chen had made up her mind the moment Lily said she was 7, not stupid. Walsh's closing was brief. Just pointed to Lily and said, that child knows what she needs, and it's not money or a big house or a father who sees her as a trophy. It's love, safety, the family she's chosen. Judge Chen didn't even recess to deliberate. I've heard enough, she said. This court finds that the original custody ruling was sound and well-reasoned. Marcus Hale's appeal is denied. Full custody remains with Victoria Hale. Visitation will continue as previously established, with the addition that all scheduled visits must be honored or Mr. Hale will face contempt charges. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Hale, your daughter is not a possession. She's a human being who deserves a father who shows up. If you want a relationship with her, you're going to have to earn it. Court dismissed. The gavel came down. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Lily turned to look at her mother. Does that mean I get to stay with you? She asked. Yes, baby. You get to stay with me. Lily started crying. Victoria started crying. Ethan felt his own eyes burning and didn't bother trying to hide it. Noah, sitting next to him, pumped his fist in the air and whispered, "Yes." They stood to leave, and Marcus was suddenly there, blocking their path. "This isn't over," he said to Victoria. "Yeah," she said calmly, "it is. You lost. And you're going to keep losing until you figure out that Lily's not a business deal you can negotiate. She's my daughter. Then act like it. Show up. Be present. Care about what she wants instead of what makes you look good." Victoria's voice was steady. No anger, just tired truth. "I'm not keeping her from you. You're doing that yourself." Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away without another word. His fiancée followed, looking relieved to be leaving. Outside the courthouse, the freezing rain had turned to snow, big fat flakes that made everything look clean and new. Walsh shook Ethan's hand, congratulated Victoria, then headed to his car. The four of them stood on the courthouse steps, Lily still in Victoria's arms, Noah pressed against Ethan's side. "What now?" Victoria asked. "Now we go home," Ethan said, "and we figure out what comes next." The drive back was quiet but comfortable. The kids fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the emotional marathon. Victoria drove and Ethan watched the snow fall and thought about how much had changed since that rainy night 3 months ago when Lily knocked on his door. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said softly. "Okay." "When Lily was on the stand, when she said we were a family, I realized I want that to be legally true, not just emotionally." Ethan's heart started pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to marry you. Not right now, not tomorrow, but eventually. When we're ready, when the kids are ready. I want to make this permanent. That's a big step. I know. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. I can wait. But I needed you to know that's where I'm heading, that this isn't casual for me, that I'm all in." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, watching the snow, thinking about Sarah and grief, and the 4 years he'd spent convinced he'd never feel this way about anyone again. "I'm all in too," he said finally. "And I don't think we need to wait as long as you think." Victoria glanced at him. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She smiled, reached over and squeezed his hand, then focused back on the road. When they got home, the kids stumbled inside, still half asleep. Ethan got Noah into pajamas while Victoria handled Lily, and then they met back in Victoria's kitchen. "I don't want you to go home," Victoria said. "Neither do I. So don't. Stay tonight. Stay every night if you want." The kids already think of us as a family. We're not fooling anyone by pretending we're still living separately." Ethan thought about his empty house across the yard, thought about the silence he'd been living in for 4 years, thought about Sarah and whether she'd approve of any of this, and realized with sudden clarity that Sarah would be furious if he walked away from this, would tell him he was being an idiot, would tell him that honoring her memory didn't mean freezing his life in the moment she left it. "Okay," he said, "we stay." That night, after the kids were asleep, Ethan and Victoria sat in her living room with wine and exhaustion and the kind of relief that came from surviving something you weren't sure you'd survive. "Thank you," Victoria said for the 100th time, "for everything, for showing up, for staying, for loving my daughter when you had every reason to walk away." "I didn't do it for you," Ethan said. "I mean, I did, but I also did it for me and for Noah. We needed this as much as you did. Why? Because I'd spent 4 years teaching my son that protecting yourself from pain was more important than opening yourself up to connection. And he was starting to believe it, starting to build the same walls I'd built. I had to show him there was another way. By diving headfirst into a stranger's custody battle, by choosing to show up even when it was scary, by proving that caring about people was worth the risk of getting hurt." Victoria set down her wine glass. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you still love Sarah?" The question should have hurt, but it didn't. "Yeah, I do. I probably always will. But it's different now. It's not the sharp grief that makes breathing hard. It's more like a dull ache that I've learned to live with. And I've learned that loving her doesn't mean I can't love someone else." "Does it bother you that I asked?" "No, I'm glad you did. I don't want there to be questions you're afraid to ask." "Okay. Then here's another one. That night on the bridge when we said we were falling in love, did you mean it? Every word. Good, because I meant it too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, processing everything that had happened, everything that was about to happen. We should probably tell the kids, Victoria said, about getting married eventually, so they know where this is heading. How do you think they'll take it? I think Noah will say he already knew, and Lily will want to plan the wedding immediately. That sounds about right. The next morning, they gathered the kids in Victoria's kitchen and sat them down for what Ethan assumed would be a serious conversation about the future. Before either adult could speak, Noah said, "Are you guys getting married?" Victoria blinked. "How did you?" "You're not exactly subtle. You hold hands all the time now. And Dad moved a bunch of his stuff over here last night while we were asleep. You were supposed to be asleep. I got up to get water, saw him carrying boxes." Noah looked at Lily. "Told you they'd figure it out eventually." Lily grinned. "Does this mean Ethan's my dad now?" "If that's okay with you," Ethan said carefully. "We don't have to rush labels. You can call me whatever feels right." "I want to call you Dad. I already call Noah my brother in my head." "Then yeah, I'm your dad." Lily launched herself at him, and Ethan caught her, held her tight, felt something crack open in his chest that had been locked shut for 4 years. "When's the wedding?" she asked. "We haven't figured that out yet," Victoria said. "Can I be a flower girl?" "Absolutely." "Can we have it on the bridge?" "That bridge is not structurally rated for a wedding." "But it would look so cool." Noah joined in. "She's right. Bridge wedding would be awesome." "We are not having a bridge wedding," Victoria said firmly. "You guys never let us have any fun," Lily complained, but she was grinning. The conversation dissolved into wedding planning chaos. The kids throwing out increasingly ridiculous ideas while Victoria tried to maintain some semblance of sanity, and Ethan just sat back and watched his new family take shape. Later that week, Ethan went to his house to pack up the rest of his and Noah's things. He stood in the bedroom he'd shared with Sarah, looking at the clothes still in her closet, and knew it was finally time. He called his mother. "I'm moving in with Victoria," he told her. "Officially, permanently." There was a long pause. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." "What about Sarah's things?" "I'm going to pack them up, donate most of it, keep a few pieces for Noah, let the rest go." Another pause. "She'd be happy for you. You know that, right?" Ethan felt his throat tighten. "I hope so." "I know so. She told me once that if anything happened to her, she wanted you to find someone else. Said you were too good at loving to waste it on grief." She said that? About a month before the accident. We were talking about life insurance and wills and all those practical things people avoid thinking about. She made me promise that if she died, I'd make sure you didn't shut down, that I'd push you to stay open to love. Why didn't you tell me? Because you weren't ready to hear it. You needed time to grieve, but you're ready now. I can hear it in your voice. I'm terrified. That means you're doing it right. Love is supposed to be scary. It's supposed to matter enough that losing it would break you. That's what makes it worth having. They talked for another hour. His mother told him stories about Sarah he'd forgotten or never knew, reminded him of who his wife had been, not just how she'd died. And when Ethan hung up, he felt lighter, like he'd been carrying something heavy for 4 years and finally gotten permission to set it down. He packed Sarah's clothes carefully, sorted through her jewelry, found her wedding ring tucked in a small box at the back of her nightstand. Noah appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Packing up your mom's things." "Are you throwing them away?" "Some, donating most of it, keeping the important stuff." Noah came and sat on the bed. "Can I keep her ring?" Ethan looked at his son. "Why?" "Because maybe someday I'll want to give it to someone. Like you're giving it to Victoria." "I'm not giving this to Victoria." "Why not? It's a wedding ring." "It's your mother's wedding ring. It belongs to her, to us, to the family we were." Ethan closed the box and set it aside. "Victoria deserves her own ring, something that's just ours, not connected to the past." "So what happens to Mom's ring?" "We keep it, put it somewhere safe, and when you're older, if you want to give it to someone, it's yours." Noah nodded slowly. "I think Mom would like Victoria." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She would have said Victoria was bossy, but in a good way. And she would have liked that Lily's smart and doesn't take crap from anyone. Ethan smiled. Your mother had a gift for seeing the best in people. You do too. You just forgot for a while. When did you get so wise? I've been wise. You just started paying attention. They finished packing together, father and son sorting through the remnants of a life that used to be, making space for the life that was coming. 2 months later, Ethan found himself standing in his workshop looking at a small wooden box he'd been working on for weeks. Inside was a ring he'd designed himself, had made by a jeweler in Columbus, simple but beautiful. He heard the door open behind him. Victoria stepped in, looking around at the organized chaos of his workspace. Wow, she said, this is where the magic happens. It's where I make furniture, not sure that qualifies as magic. Noah says you can build anything. That's pretty magical. Noah's biased. Noah's honest. She walked over to the workbench, ran her fingers over the box. What's this? A project I've been working on. Can I see? Ethan's heart started pounding. This wasn't how he'd planned to do this. He'd imagined something romantic, maybe the bridge at sunset, maybe a fancy dinner, not his workshop on a random Tuesday afternoon, but maybe that was better. Maybe the real moments were better than the planned ones. Yeah, he said. You can see. He opened the box. Victoria's breath caught. Ethan. I know we said eventually, I know we said when we were ready, but I think I'm ready now. I think I've been ready for a while, and I was just too scared to admit it. I made the box myself. Had the ring made by a jeweler, but I designed it. Wanted it to be something unique, something that was just ours. Victoria picked up the ring, turned it in the light. It was white gold, simple band, small diamond that caught the light. Engraved on the inside were 4 words. We built a bridge. I love it, she said, and her voice was shaking. I love you. Is that a yes? That's a hell yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and for the first time in 4 years, Ethan felt completely certain he was exactly where he was supposed to be. They got married 6 months later in Victoria's backyard on a Saturday afternoon in early fall. Not on the bridge, though the kids lobbied hard for it. Just a simple ceremony with family and close friends, Lily as flower girl and Noah as best man. And a celebration that felt more like a family reunion than a wedding. Ethan's mother cried through the whole thing. Walsh showed up with his wife and gave Victoria a hug that lasted long enough to be meaningful. Even a few of Ethan's old clients came, people whose furniture he'd built, who'd watched him retreat into himself after Sarah died and were clearly relieved to see him smile again. Marcus sent a gift but didn't attend. Lily didn't seem to notice or care. She was too busy making sure her dress looked perfect, and that Noah had the rings, and that everything was going according to her very detailed plan. During the ceremony, when the officiant asked if anyone objected, Lily shouted, "Nobody better say anything," which got a huge laugh and maybe wasn't technically part of the script, but felt right anyway. When Ethan and Victoria exchanged vows, he found himself choking up. I spent 4 years convinced I'd used up my chance at this, he said. Convinced that loving someone and building a life together was something that happened once and then was gone. And then a terrified little girl showed up on my porch in the rain and changed everything. You taught me that broken things can be fixed, that closed hearts can open, that family isn't something you're born into, it's something you choose to build. And I choose this. I choose you. I choose us. Every single day. Victoria was crying openly by the time he finished. I spent my whole marriage feeling invisible, she said, feeling like I had to be smaller, quieter, less myself to be loved. And then you showed up and saw me exactly as I am, and didn't ask me to change a single thing. You taught me that love isn't about fixing each other or completing each other. It's about choosing to show up and build something together even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And I'm going to keep showing up for you, for our kids, for this wild, messy, beautiful life we're building. Forever. The kiss that followed was interrupted by both kids yelling, "Finally!" which broke the tension and made everyone laugh. At the reception, Ethan danced with Lily, who stood on his feet and made him spin her around until they were both dizzy. You know what the best part is? She said. What's that? I got exactly what I asked for that night I came to your house. What did you ask for? A father by Friday? Except I got way more than that. I got you and Noah and a whole family. Ethan felt his eyes burn. I'm the one who got more than I asked for. That's what happens when you build bridges instead of walls, Lily said seriously. They connect things. Who taught you that? Nobody. I figured it out myself. Later, Ethan found himself standing at the edge of the yard looking at the bridge they'd built all those months ago. It was still there, weathered now, the wood slightly gray but solid and strong. Noah joined him. Weird, right? What is? How different everything is from a year ago. Yeah, it's weird. Good weird, though. Definitely good weird. They stood in comfortable silence, watching guests mingle, watching Victoria laugh with her friends, watching Lily show off her flower girl dress to anyone who would look. Dad? Noah said. Yeah? I think Mom would be really happy right now. About all of this. Ethan pulled his son close. Me too, bud. Me too. As the sun set and the party continued around them, Ethan thought about all the choices that had led here. The choice to open his door on a rainy night. The choice to help a stranger. The choice to keep showing up even when it was scary. The choice to love again, even though it meant risking loss. And he realized something Sarah had probably known all along. That the opposite of grief wasn't happiness. It was connection. It was choosing to stay open to life, even when life had proven it could break you. It was building bridges instead of walls. It was showing up for people who needed you and letting people show up for you. It was understanding that broken hearts could heal if you gave them something worth healing for. The bridge between their houses stood solid in the fading light, connecting 2 yards that used to be separate, connecting 2 families that used to be alone, connecting past and present and future in a way that felt inevitable and impossible all at once. And standing there with his son, watching his new wife dance with their daughter, Ethan finally understood what Sarah had been trying to teach him all along. That love wasn't something you used up or ran out of. It was something that grew when you gave it away. Something that multiplied when you shared it. Something that survived loss not by hiding from it, but by staying open to what came next. A year ago, Ethan Carter was a man who'd built his entire life around protecting himself from pain, around keeping the world at a careful distance, around making sure nothing ever hurt him the way losing Sarah had hurt him. And then a 7-year-old girl knocked on his door in the rain and asked for help, and everything changed. Not because helping was easy, not because it solved all his problems or erased his grief or made the past 4 years disappear, but because it reminded him that being alive meant more than just surviving. It meant showing up. It meant caring enough to risk getting hurt. It meant building things that mattered even when you knew they could fall apart. It meant choosing love even when love had already broken you once. The party continued into the night, full of laughter and music and the kind of chaotic joy that came from people who'd fought hard to be together. And when Victoria found Ethan standing by the bridge and slipped her hand into his, he squeezed back and thought about how far they'd all come. From strangers to family, from fear to trust, from broken to healing, from 2 separate houses to 1 shared home, from the knock on the door to forever. And standing there in the autumn darkness with his wife beside him and his children safe and happy nearby, Ethan finally let himself believe what he'd been too scared to believe for 4 years. That it was okay to be happy again. That Sarah would want this for him. That loving Victoria didn't mean betraying Sarah's memory. It meant honoring everything Sarah had taught him about what love could be. That broken things could be fixed. That closed hearts could open. That families could be chosen as much as they were born. That sometimes the best thing you could do was jump without knowing where you'd land because the landing would take care of itself. That bridges were stronger than walls. And that love, real love, the kind that showed up in the rain and stayed through the storm and chose you every single day, was always worth the risk.